Why The Shawshank Redemption is the best film ever made, and it's not even close. Right. First off, people, let's address the obvious, shall we? The Shawshank Redemption is on paper absolute goblin piss. It's about a quiet Norman Bates-looking weirdo who goes to prison, barely raises his voice or says diddly squat, and spends 20 years doing admin. Thrilling. Just grade A, top-quality stuff. Where do I buy a ticket? No explosions, no car chases, no drugs, no huge set pieces, no animal sacrifices, no horse whispering, no worshipping the... No one even throws a decent punch half the time. And yet somehow this film walks into every greatest movies ever list, sits at the top, and goes, yeah, I'm staying here and the rest of you can take a long walk off a short pier. And the worst part? It's right. It's pure cinema. But why though? Andy Dufresne, the calmest maniac in cinema. Andy Dufresne is either a genius or the politest nutter ever put on screen. Wrongly convicted, sentenced to life, most people would lose their shit. Andy? Nah. Man rocks up to prison like he's checking into a slightly disappointing Airbnb. Doesn't shout, doesn't cry, doesn't even look mildly arsed. He just stands there like, interesting. I'll dismantle this Charlie Foxtrot over the next 2 decades. That's not resilience. That's psychotic patience. People are getting the snot beaten out of them, and Andy's like, do you know what? Nothing revs my engine more than polishing some rock and doing tax returns. Tax returns. I'd rather put a campfire out with my face than sit in prison, and do tax returns. Imagine being a hardened prison guard, and your big emotional turning point is a shady-looking banker explaining tax to you like you came down in the last shower. Tim Robbins is brilliant as Andy Dufresne because he does something really hard. He makes being as quiet as a mouse on opioids feel as powerful as Superman on steroids.
What? Bro, what are you talking about, man?
Andy isn't a loud, showy character. He's calm, controlled, and almost unreadable. Robbins leans into that. He plays him with this steady, almost eerie composure, so when cracks of emotion do show, like fear, hope, or defiance, they hit much harder. He also nails the intelligence without making Andy a smug nod gobbler. You believe he's the smartest guy in the room, but also completely out of place in prison, like a cat in a room full of rocking chairs. That mix, brainy, fragile, and quietly determined, makes you root for him instantly. And the big thing, he embodies hope without ever turning into a cheese factory. Opposite Morgan Freeman's more grounded, skeptical Red, Robbins plays Andy like a man already living mentally outside those prison walls. That contrast is what gives the film its emotional wallop. Basically, he doesn't perform Andy, he lets you slowly discover him, and that's why it sticks. Now on to Red. The smoothest man alive, played by Morgan Freeman, aka the only man who could narrate your worst life decisions and somehow make them sound profound. He could tell me to rip off my ear and glue it to my kneecap, and I'd do it with a smile on my face, all while listening to that silky smooth voice. It's like Cadbury's milk chocolate making love to honey on a bed of silk wrapped in cashmere. Red is the heart of the film. He's seen everything. He knows people. He knows the system. He's completely institutionalized. He's basically the prison's unofficial shrink. If Shawshank had podcasts, Red would have 10 million listeners and a sponsorship deal with BetterHelp. And his whole thing is, hope is dangerous, which sounds deep, until Andy comes along and absolutely sharts all over his worldview with quiet optimism and suspiciously good financial advice. Morgan Freeman is fantastic as Red. He makes the audience trust him instantly. There's a quiet sadness in him, like someone who's been institutionalized for so long he doesn't quite know how to exist outside prison. Freeman never overplays it. It's in the pauses, the looks, the way he carries himself. What really makes it special is how he evolves. At the start, Red is cynical. Hope is an absolute pile of waffle clunge. By the end, through Andy, you see that cynicism slowly crack like a cheap clown's makeup. Freeman sells that shit so naturally that when he finally chooses hope, it feels earned, not sentimental. And the chemistry with Tim Robbins is perfect. Robbins is the quiet spark, Freeman is the grounded reality. Together they balance each other, and that's what makes Red's journey, from resignation to hope, so powerful. Freeman doesn't just play Red, he anchors the entire film. Brooks, emotional damage incoming.
Oh, Jesus, God, no.
Brooks, sweet, harmless old Brooks. The man just wants to feed his bird and not deal with any nonsense in the outside world. He finally gets released after decades inside and completely falls apart. Because the real villain of this film isn't the warden, it's what the place does to people. Brooks's story is where the film stops being funny and just punches you directly in the ass crack. No dramatic music, no big speech, just a man who can't cope with freedom. And suddenly you're sitting there like, oh cool, thanks a lot, you thimble-headed gherkin. Cheers for that. Superb. Also, can someone please tell me what happened to Jake, Brooks' pet crow? Is he okay? Did he make friends? Is he living his best life? I need to know this. On to the warden and the system, aka absolute bastard covered bastards in bastard sauce. Warden Norton is peak fake holy menace, again played like a legend by Bob Gunton. Bible in one hand, corruption in the other. Man quotes scripture while running a money laundering scheme and abusing inmates. If hypocrisy were an Olympic sport, this bloke's taking gold, silver, and bronze. He's the human equivalent of a damp, moldy basement. He's cold, he smells like old Bibles, and he's full of hidden corpses. He is a world-class sack of monkey scum. If Warden Norton were on fire and I had a glass of water, I'd drink it. He's a sanctimonious, power-tripping, suit-wearing parasite who deserved every bit of the judgment Andy left for him.
I have to say, that's the most amazing story I ever heard.
Also have to mention Clancy Brown's brilliant performance. He is one evil mother humper. He doesn't play Captain Hadley like a cartoon villain. He plays him like a real, terrifying human being. First, it's that voice. Brown's deep, booming delivery makes every line sound like a threat, even when he's barely raising it. When he does explode, it feels unpredictable and dangerous, which keeps you dribbling in your pants the whole time. Then there's his physical presence. He's not just built like King Kong's fridge, he moves like someone who knows he has power and enjoys using it. Whether he's casually intimidating inmates or snapping into violence, you believe instantly that this guy runs the place on fear alone. If you ran into this guy on a damp Wednesday night in January, you'd steer well clear. What really elevates the performance, though, is restraint. Brown doesn't overdo it. He lets small moments like a glare, a pause, or a slight change in tone do the work. That makes Hadley feel real, not theatrical. He's not evil for show, he's just wired that way, and boy is he wired wrong. And crucially, he fits perfectly into the film's world alongside Andy and Red. While they bring hope and humanity, Brown brings the oppressive weight of the prison system. He's the embodiment of why Shawshank feels inescapable. In short, he's believable, controlled, and genuinely intimidating, which is exactly why Captain Hadley sticks with you long after the film ends. In other words, he's an evil, sadistic twonk wobbler.
Alrighty then.
In fact, when you pull your head out of your fart box and really look, not one actor in this entire movie does anything else apart from absolutely nail it. Everyone is damn near perfect. Deborah Aquila was responsible for the casting, and all I have to say is,
Perfect.
We have to mention the director Frank Darabont. He managed to turn the Shawshank Redemption into something way bigger than a prison movie by focusing on hope over misery. He took a simple story from Stephen King and slowed it down, letting characters like Andy Dufresne and Ellis Boyd Red Redding breathe, think, and quietly fight back against a shitstick of a system. Darabont's style is patient, emotional, and human. He doesn't rush the big moments, so when they hit, Brooks, the escape, the ending, they really hit. He made a story about prison feel like a story about freedom. The longest, pettiest flex in film history. This is where the film just takes the piss, because for 2 hours, you think you're watching a slow, thoughtful character drama. What you're actually watching is a 20-year setup for the most disrespectful mic drop escape ever filmed. Andy spends years chipping away at a wall, building a library, gaining trust, managing finances, eating cement, talking to Rita. all while everyone else is just trying to survive the week. And when the reveal hits, you don't feel clever. You feel like the film just leaned in and went, yeah, he's been 10 steps ahead of you this entire time, you absolute bumble biscuit. And you just sit there like, you absolute bastard. Fair play. The ending, illegal levels of satisfaction. Then the ending shows up and just ruins you emotionally. Andy in the rain, iconic. Red on the outside, devastating. That final walk on the beach, that's not a scene. That's the film gently grabbing your heart and whispering, you needed this, didn't you, you toss bucket? And yeah, you did. Why it's actually the best. Here's the annoying truth. This film shouldn't work. It's slow, it's quiet, it's about men sitting around being sad as feck for most of the runtime. But it works, because it's about something bigger. Hope in a hopeless place, friendship that actually feels real, time passing and what it does to people, and the idea that even in the worst situation imaginable, you don't have to become it. Also, it's secretly about a smug banker committing the most satisfying act of long-term revenge ever put on screen, which helps. Final verdict. So yeah, The Shawshank Redemption is about prison, but really it's about hope, patience, friendship, and how one quiet, slightly unhinged man with a rock hammer can absolutely dismantle an entire corrupt system out of pure spite. And if you don't think this is one of the greatest films ever made, that's fine. But deep down, you're 7 sandwiches short of a picnic.
Get busy living or get busy dying. That's goddamn right. In 1966, Andy Dufresne escaped from Shawshank Prison.